Welcome to the Phoenix Prosperity Podcast, where wealth meets legacy. Join your host, Tim Fergestad, as we explore the journeys of Phoenix's finest to success and beyond.
Hello, this is Tim Fergestad. Thank you for joining us. Our stories shape our stress, our health, and our leadership. Dr. Mark Pirtle joins me to unpack mindfulness, shadow work, and what authentic success really looks like. Welcome to the show, Dr. Mark.
Hey, thanks for having me, Tim. I appreciate you.
All right, so real quick, you're in Tucson.
Yeah.
And still Arizona, still counts. Talk to us a little bit about what your focus is right now, and then we can back up and get sort of your story, your origin story, and what's led you to where you're at.
Yeah. Well, the work that I do now, I work with leaders, primarily one-on-one, but also in groups, and I help them spot patterns of thinking and behavior that are tripping them up. Usually stuff they don't realize is running the show.
We're pretty reactive creatures.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's that reactivity, that programming that we don't really see, but can impact our relationships and our success. And so I help people see it so they can make a shift, and then if they're in a leadership role, lead with more skill and grace. That's really the core of my work.
Okay. Yeah, there's so much there. I can imagine you can spend your whole life just trying to help people, determine their reality and reframe their stories and all that stuff. That as a neuroscientist, I know some of that, the different aspects of the brain. One of the first things I learned about was the reticular activating system, right? Kind of that part of the brain that you find what you look for, or what you tell your brain to look for, type of thing. And if you're if you're negative, you're going to find crap to complain about, for sure. Not hard.
Yeah, I got a whole teaching on attention. It's like a core. It's the core of everything. Is where your attention take you.
I agree. I wasn't arguing. I was just discussing with somebody. They were talking about the four main virtues, right? Stoicism, right? Courage is the parent of all the others. And I was like, nah. I was like, awareness is top, because you don't know what to be courageous about unless you know what's going on.
Yeah. Awareness.
It's paramount. Yes. Yeah. So before we dive into the meat and potatoes of all that stuff, let's back up now. How did you get to that space and start helping people in that with leadership and business?
Okay, so I'll try to keep this short. So I have a doctorate in physical therapy, and clearly I'm not doing that anymore. But when I was working as a physical therapist, chronic pain was my thing, and I also had a bottoming out experience in my life, and I did not go to rehab because I couldn't afford it. I ended up in a Tibetan Buddhist monastery. I had to get my head straight. Long story, I won't bore you with it, but I learned how to meditate there. And then when I came back, mindfulness was just becoming a thing. And so I was a physical therapist. Chronic pain was my thing. I paired that with mindfulness, and I started a pain program at a place called Sierra Tucson, which is down here in the area. It's in Catalina, and I started their pain program. And nice. When I got to Sierra Tucson, I was immediately hit with how difficult pain patients are. Well, first of all, if you go to rehab for pain, your pain has to be like 10. And you have to have tried everything else and nothing worked, and you're depressed, you're addicted to your pain medicine. So it's a hairball. Yeah. And so I go there, I start having some success. I don't want to brag. I don't have the gene where I'm nervous about public speaking. And so they needed to send folks out to do marketing. And so I was that, and they liked how glib And I was. And so the next thing I know, I'm teaching everyone in all the 5 programs, not just the pain program. Okay. And I'm doing stand up for them basically. And I get all of this following. And eventually I leave Sierra Tucson and I have all this curriculum. And that's what I just generalized it, because to the brain, pain is pain. Mm-hmm. You follow? And so when you're in physical pain or psycho-emotional pain, the same circuits light up. And so the curriculum I had for the pain program was suitable for anyone who was depressed or anxious or PTSD, like the stress-related illnesses, they're epidemic. And so I had all this curriculum, and then I just started creating content. And I wrote and directed a film, not directed, I'm sorry, produced. I don't want to step on my director's title. Yeah. I co-wrote and produced a film that is playing on PBS called Is Your Story Making You Sick? And that's how the narrative thing got going. And then so online classes, and I teach an addictions class, and I see clients at a recovery place. But I met a business leader at Sierra Tucson, and he is part of EO. Do you know EO?
Entrepreneurs Organization?
Yeah, so that opened up a whole other network, and so that's what brought me to
Sure, I had Scott Novus on the show. He used to be the head of the EO a year or so ago.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, so anyway, that's the transition. I know it was a long story, but how does a physical therapist do what I do? That's what long circuitous route.
Sure. Well, there's a lot I want to unpack there. As a neuroscientist, just in general, we know that our body doesn't really distinguish between a lot, right? You have kind of a basal physiological state, and then you have an excited state, right?
Yeah.
And whether or not the same thing can happen to 2 different people. One person could enjoy it, like being on a roller coaster, and go, "Wee, this is fun! I love this." The other person, the exact same experience, could tell themselves, "This sucks! I hate this." Right? So how you decide to process things and train your brain, right, is paramount. And in terms of pain and back pain, what was Sarno? John Sarno, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, are you a fan? I mean, it seems like this is a very similar topic, anyway.
No.
No. Okay. So, but
way too simplistic. And to the point where the mind controls everything, and you really don't have back pain. It's because you're angry, and that's really unfair to people. And they just completely, because these are all psychologists, right? And not to poo-poo on psychologists, but when you have a frame, it's psychological. I'm a psychologist, or I'm a physical therapist. Everything is physical.
Right.
It's neither. It's
right.
And so does the mind affect the body? Yes. Can you sensitize yourself because you're scared of your back pain? Yes, but there's a mechanical reason it's hurting. It's not because you're mad. Otherwise, sure. Being angry, like I've been really mad in my life, and I would add a lot of back pain, and that just wasn't the case.
Right.
And
right.
Just the research into the science of back pain, like back pain was my boogie. Way back, I wrote software that diagnosed, before artificial intelligence, the types of back pain that you get. 13 questions. I don't want to go into that, but like I know back pain upside down and backwards, and the back ages like everything else, and because humans move a certain way, certain things wear out because you're stressing them, and then if you stress it enough, it's like any tissue. If it's innervated, it hurts. And so, but with the thumb, like if you hit yourself with a thumb with a hammer, like you know what not to do. So this thumb gets better. Like you don't hit it with a hammer. You're careful with it. With your back,
right?
It's back here. It hurts so much. You have no idea what's going on back there. And then stretch, do yoga, do this, like lay on a hard mattress, lay on a firm mattress. There's so much conflicting evidence, and people, and it hurts so much you can't work sometimes. And that fear gets into the gears and messes things up. And so you got to understand what you have a good diagnosis for the pain and suggest the right treatment. And that's all I'm trying to do in the psycho-emotional realm. Understand where our perspectives aren't meeting reality and causing the gears to jam, and elevating, first of all, with meditation and mindfulness, like being able to see into, and this is humans are complicated, being able to see into how the mind itself and how we're programmed is affecting how we're appraising what's happening and our reactivity. And can we begin to self-reflect and observe in a careful and systematic way that we start answering, so we start understanding the clues that our life is giving us, because we're having relationship difficulties and it seems like it's happening out there, but really it's stuff that we don't understand about ourselves that we're doing. And how do I become sort of my own best therapist? Because my therapist isn't always with me when I'm around, and I become reactive, and it's like, where did that come from?
Right.
You follow?
Right. Yeah. So for sure.
That's what I'm helping folks with.
Okay. Your journey sounds similar to Maxwell Maltz. You know psycho-cybernetics?
No.
Okay.
No,
well, he was a plastic surgeon, and like 100 years ago, right? And he went through, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, 70s, and he wrote a book called Psycho-Cybernetics. Very good book, but he came at it as a practitioner in clinic, talking to people, trying to help them with their problem. You're trying to help them with their pain, right? And kind of like, I know recently my daughter, right, had turf toe, right, from marching band, and your brain gets so guarded that you have to. There's different levels of circuitry that get defensive, and you have to work through it. And you start to realize, yes, there's stuff here, but a lot of it's here, right?
Yeah.
And same with him. He's like, these people would come in and they would tell themselves a story about I have this scar on my face, right? And this is impairing my ability to function socially and all this other stuff. When it depends on the story you're telling yourself about it. He starts off that book, I think, talking about the German fencers, and they wore them around like badges. They were proud of them, right? And they got all this attention because of them. Right. And other people over here are like, oh no, it's ruining my life. And it's like, well, okay, which is it? So as a plastic surgeon, he started to get into that stuff. That's how he got into psycho-cybernetics. And it's similar, I think.
It sounds similar. Indeed.
But a similar journey, at least, and some overlapping stuff maybe.
Yeah. And none of the stuff that I've created is new. It's a broad understanding. See, I'm a systems theorist, and what I'm trying to do is help people see the whole system. And when I say the system, what I mean is what's happening in the world. Mm-hmm. So all the sights and the sounds that we're confronted with, and some things are triggering and some things are not. But then on the inside, there are sensations, both physical and emotional sensations that we react to, and we have opinions about. And then we have our thoughts, and thoughts can be broken down into picture-like thoughts and sound-like thoughts. And so this formulation, and I didn't invent the 6 attentional targets. That came from my meditation teacher. His name is Shinzen Young. And anyone out there who, he's just sort of retired, he's in his 80s, but I mean, Shinzen Young is all over the universe, and an amazing teacher. And Shinzen said to me, he said, if you are only as enlightened as your teacher, you're only half as enlightened, because you need to bring something to the Dharma. And so what I've brought to the Dharma is this systems approach. And so it's meditation and mindfulness and perspective taking, and perspectives are involved with humans grow up, and we grow up through stages. and each stage has a perspective. And I won't go into that, it's very complicated, but understanding where your center of gravity is, where you really sort of see out into the world and know when it's called a shadow crash, when you show up your parents' house and they say something, next thing you're acting like a 12-year-old, that's a shadow crash. And so knowing your perspective, super important. So meditation, mindfulness, perspective taking, and then the shadow work piece. The shadow work is kind of what encompasses everything. It's helping bring conscious awareness to what is heretofore unconscious, so you can begin to work with it. So
be more intentional, right?
Yes. So that's this whole system that I'm trying to evangelize. Help people get to a place in their development where they can see the whole system.
Okay. And you've sort of bridged both the personal and the business realms in this practice, right? I mean, which came first? Was it your own personal stuff and working with pain, and then?
When I was a physical therapist, I had a business. We were super successful. We had clinics here in Alaska, and one of my business partners found a loophole in the operating agreement. And the next thing you know, I was voted off the island, and I was freaking mad as hell. And that's what pickled me. My anger. I don't know if you've ever tried to do this where you're sincerely trying to go to sleep, but you're plotting murder at the same time. Like, you cannot get those two things to line up. And so I just developed all these stress-related illnesses, and that's what landed me in the monastery. Because I knew it was a mind thing. Mm-hmm. I knew it was my own mind, and so I had to go away. Okay.
But then you came back, and then were you working more on like a personal front or a business front?
No, that's when I came back. Then it was like the light bulb went off. Oh, I'm a physical therapist. I understand chronic pain. There's a linkage because now I'm a meditator, right? And I could see the inner system because I've meditated for so many hours and under great guidance. And so when I came back, it's like, I got to teach people how to do this. And so my thing from the very beginning is empowering people with understanding and practices, because it's not just knowing. You have to do the doing, because the doing, because because you're a neuroscientist, you understand that if you want to change, you actually have to grow a different brain that doesn't have the problem, and that growing that growing a different brain, that comes from the doing piece. Mm-hmm. You can think about, I'm going to think about meditating, or I can think about doing this practice, or I can think about self-regulating. But if you don't actually do the self-regulating and be patient and like hang in there when it's crazy, like there's nothing happening inside. Right. You're not growing a brain that's adapting.
Right. You have to train it, do the reps.
You got to do it. You got to do the reps. Exactly.
Yep. So what are some of the initial issues people come to you with now? Like you mentioned, back when there was back pain, they waited until they had all sorts of issues, right, before they would come in for rehab or something. But in your business now, what's sort of a typical client? Where are they at? What do they need to do first?
Okay, so leaders, the really high functioning leaders I work with are, they're cultivating the edges, right? They're not addicted to a degree where they got to go to rehab. There might be a pattern of where they, how do I want to say this? A pattern where they become stressed and they use food as medicating a little bit, and so they have a little bit of a weight problem. It's not huge, but they can clean that up on the edges. There may be some difficulty managing emotions, not just at work, but in the family. Like they might have a 16-year-old daughter who shows up disrespectfully and contemptuously, and at work, they're just like, they can handle their business, but at home, their daughter trips their triggers. So there's like, why am I doing this when... And so it's helping people understand that context matters, and certain things are going to trigger you when other things won't. And so we have to understand what the context is, where are the triggers, and there's a way to work through all of that. And a lot of really successful people have had trauma, and trauma, unmetabolized, unworked through trauma, always creates shadow patterns that you got to work through. If you want to be at your best, I mean, you can still be successful, but shadow issues, because we're talking in a business context, they can be expensive. They can cost you relationships or opportunities that, had you managed this just a little bit differently, you would have gotten the contract. And then you go home and it's like, why did I do that again? It's it's that kind of thing.
There's a better way. You can cut expenses, whatever it might be.
Yeah. So it's the work I do is all about the inside. It's not about the outside. There are plenty of great business coaches that help people with the outside, with the business, with the strategy and all of that. And
computer systems.
I don't do any of that. I help a person see their inside so they can be better than the outside.
Okay. And before we get into, you have a couple of books you're working on. You have some that one's personal, one's business. But I guess I want to double click on the reframing the past, right? You mentioned traumas, and I think I didn't appreciate how a lot of people apparently have an accumulation of micro traumas. I don't. A lot of people I know have issues and preconceived notions, and they're very reactive about certain things. They weren't like, in a terrible event in their past per se, but they just have these little things that added up over time, the way that they did things in a previous position, maybe at work or in a relationship. And that is keeping their blinders on to their future, right? There's real power in reevaluating your past and moving on, right? Reframing it in a constructive way, which it sounds like a lot of what you do.
100%.
Okay, excellent. Anyway, okay, sorry, that was me wrapping my brain around the reframing of past experiences. Now, I think you have Unfinished Business and Built This Way, two books you're working on.
The book that I'm working on that's coming out soon. Actually, I'm launching a book launch that starts in a week from now, like January 26th. That's for Built This Way. Built This Way: Understanding Humans and Why Change is So Hard. So that is going to be an introduction into understanding the full system of being a human, and how the mind and the body are connected, and how the past affects the present, and all about appraisals, and there's a chapter on trauma and a chapter on shadow work, and on these perspectives. And so it's a broad overview of everything that I teach. And that's called Built This Way.
Okay. And when is that coming out?
That's coming out. It'll be released in September, but a person can, if they listen to this and they're interested and they want to buy a pre-sale copy, just connect with me and I can send you to the landing page. And then you'll be in the loop of that book and the flow of information. And there's a lot of great things that I'm putting together for that launch. The second book is called Unfinished Business. And that's specific. So the first was general audience. The second one is specifically for leaders. And this is mostly shadow work for leaders. So Unfinished Business: The Inner Work Behind the Work of Great Leadership. And if you read the first book, you'll recognize the second book, and my writing style is all about stories and really helping a person gain an understanding, but not only an understanding, the practices related to doing your own shadow work. And that book is for my EO audience, and I'm in my work with forums, and it's going to introduce. I've been noodling around on AI, and I have some University of Arizona interns, super smart young guys that are coding this app that I call the awareness quotient. It may not have that name when it comes out, but a leader can do that, get an assessment that assesses their level of development, their right and left brain hemispheric function balance. We have developmental aptitudes. When a young child, an infant, grows up, they learn how to function in the world, and one of the first things they come to do is they come to want things, and that's a step. Like, kids need to know, people need to know what they want so they can go for it, and so that's an aptitude. And the next is drive. Can you keep going towards that? Perseverance, grit, and achievement, and celebration, and restraint. And these are all aptitudes that a person can have a dysfunction where they start to leak power. And so this assessment helps a person really, it's like a fingerprint of your inner world. And so I'm doing that for EO and YPO forums and for individuals, and that's coming out in the book Unfinished Business.
Okay, and that'll be an online assessment tool people can can use. Okay, very cool.
Yeah,
very cool. To your point, I do know a lot of people who they get into the grind so long. They're different people, so why they started the grind isn't always the same goal as what they have now. But they often not forget, but they just change, and they don't know what they want. Which surprises me that people don't take time to be more intentional with their life. But
see, that's the autonomy thing. That's the first aptitude, the autonomy, because people do drift, and they don't really assess and take time to really assess, is this what I really want?
Right. And there are different levels or definitions of success. Right. There's financial success, there's time freedom success, right? Mm-hmm. Being able to do what you want, where you want, with who you want. Mm-hmm. But then there's also purpose, right? Living according to your values. And that's, I think, kind of my highest one, where you're having an impact and pushing things forward for other people, creating real meaning with your time.
Your alignment aptitude would be high, would score high on the assessment.
All right, excellent, good. Okay, so as we wrap things up here, I guess we didn't talk too much about like financial success and in the future plans and things like that. And do you have, as an entrepreneur, you're flexible, right? You can keep doing what you're doing for a while. Do you have plans to grow your financial freedom?
Well, yeah, I'm healthy and happy, and so the inner world is good, because of a change in my profession and losing my business. I'm 65 today. It's my birthday today.
Oh, happy birthday!
Thank you. And so I imagined I'd be in a different place financially than I am right now, and so that's the part of my life that, I've got all of these great things that are in the works, and I have full faith and confidence that I'm going to get that stuff out into the world. And I'm just sort of a joyful warrior, handling my business and being okay with where things are at right now.
Okay, excellent. Well, again, I hope this is a great year for you, Mark. 65, that's awesome. So, as we wrap things up here, I was wondering if you had any exciting plans for 2026.
Only to get those books out, do more speaking engagements, do some traveling, and finish up the assessment with my team. I just it's 2026 isn't going to be a year of travel and fun. It's going to be a year of, blocking and tackling and getting things done and being grateful for the opportunities that I have and that are unfolding and the doors that are opening. I honestly, with all of this coming, I have no idea what is on the horizon for me. So I'm excited for it all.
Yeah. Well, you're grateful and you're being intentional, which you're winning. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. All right. Well,
give the listeners just a takeaway.
Sure.
Yeah. That sort of everything that a person wants starts with learning how to attune to the moment. And attuning means sensing into yourself, others, and situations with acceptance and care and a wish for a higher good. And when people start doing that, they're going to affect not only their local environment, but ultimately the ripples of goodness are going to spread and will affect the larger world. And that's really what I want to evangelize, because the world could use some people that are raising their awareness and attuning to each other and making manifest more goodness in the world, because that kind of awareness changes everything.
Right.
I guess that's what I wanted to conclude with.
That's a good message. Get on Team Human.
Yeah, Team Human, man.
All right.
Team good humans.
Right. Fair enough. All right. Well, thank you, Mark. If people would like to connect with you and learn more, where can they go? What should they do?
Yeah, my website is Dr. for Dr. Mark Pirtle, and my last name is spelled P as in Paul, IRT as in Tom, LE, drmarkpirtle.com. And it all starts there.
Excellent. All right. Sounds great. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. Thank you very much, Mark Pirtle, for joining me today and sharing your story and your insights into success and contentment, I guess. It may be intentionality. Thank you.
Inspired by our guests? Visit PhoenixProsperityPodcast.com/guest and join us on the show and share your success story with Tim. The spotlight awaits.